Vault is one of the starter warframes available right at the beginning of the game. Like almost every other MMO, however, this does not make him an underpowered or newbie warframe. Vault, true to his name, is a conduit of exceptional electrical power. So what exactly does he do, and how can you get the most out of him? I'm Nick Engineer, let's solve a practical problem. See Vault and Warframes in action, or join the squads live on Twitch with the link in the video description. Vault is a starter frame, one of the 3 available as you begin your Tenno journey. If you didn't pick him at the start, he is also available from a Research Clan dojo by heading over to the Tenno lab. If you're a new player, I highly recommend joining an established clan to get access to these researched blueprints. Just don't join one with various activity and resource demands from you. Casual clans exist without telling new players to surrender their limited resources. Vault, like most warframes, has his passive and 4 active abilities. Vault's passive builds up static electricity from his movement. While Vault moves across the ground, his shuffling builds up a charge ready to be deployed with his next attack or offensive ability innate to Vault. This passive builds a fixed damage value up to 1000, affected by critical bonuses and faction bonuses. It is not boosted by elemental mods or pure damage mods and only applies once. Any multi-shot will not duplicate the bonus damage this grants. For low levels, this can be a huge damage spike, which can help tremendously in taking down high threat targets, especially when aiming for the head to get the headshot and critical headshot buffs. Like here, with this minimally modded Tenora Prime, jumping from 2022 damage on a leg shot to 55,454 damage on a headshot with the passive in effect. The damage bonus does not combine with elemental modding on your weapon, existing in the hit as its own electric damage even if you're already using a combined electric type like magnetic. The electric damage is weighed against the rest of your weapon's damage when determining which status effect to apply if the chances roll successfully. For higher level players, using mods like Condition Overload, this can lead to increased damage via the extra status effect, long after the 1000 damage max of the passive stopped mattering. The passive bonus is consumed on shooting, not on landing a hit, meaning a missed shot or an attack used against a basic loot crate will consume your passive too. If you're relying on this damage boost as a new player while moving between locations, you can still open crates by bullet jumping next to them, retaining your static damage. As for Vault's active abilities, his first is Shock. Shock is a cheap to cast damage and stun ability. Vault targets a spot or enemy he can see at any range and causes electricity to strike it, applying electric damage and a proc. It then arcs to an enemy within 15 meters, modified by range, dealing the damage and proc to them too, repeating the process up to 5 total chains. If you targeted an enemy directly, that's up to 6 enemies struck. Otherwise, if you targeted terrain, you'll get up to 5 hits from the chains. For low level missions, this can be a significant chunk of damage to a group of enemies, almost like a targeted grenade. Shock can use the bonus damage from Vault's passive, applying it to all targets in the chain on cast. With a base damage of 200, a fully stacked Vault passive here is equal to applying a 500% strength bonus to your cast. While the ability is limited to 6 targets at max, the electric status effect can cause additional units to take damage from the area of effect of the status, at least while the main targets are alive and within 3 meters. Once you get out of the early levels, however, this ability falls off quickly for damage purposes, and the stun effect is hardly enough to keep it relevant. To revive the ability's usefulness in higher levels, you can use the augment mod Shock Trooper. This gives Shock a hold cast ability, applying a modded electric bonus to you and your nearby allies' weapons equal to your strength value. This can be a significant damage increase with the right modding, but can also potentially ruin your allies' builds. If someone is using a viral heat setup and gets affected by your Shock Trooper, you'll change their elemental modding to viral radiation, completely changing and in some cases functionally breaking their weapon. Use this augment with caution. Both Shock and Shock Trooper can be applied to other warframes via the helmet system. Vault's second ability is Speed. This is an instant cast ability, not interrupting most action you're performing. On cast, it grants you and all allies in range a boost to movement speed, melee attack speed, and reload speed, all for a short duration. I'm not sure why the ability card and tips don't mention the melee attack speed buff, but it is definitely there. One of the key benefits of Vault's speed ability is that it boosts base movement speed, not sprint speed. This means all allies can benefit from it in almost all modes, including walking, sprinting, crouch walking, walking while aiming, and even flying. The boost even remains active while you go into Archwing in the open world, allowing for bursts of extremely fast flight. When playing as Volt, your speed lasts until the ability expires, either by time or being turned off, such as by going out of bounds. However, you can remove the speed boost applied by an allied Volt if you do a backflip. To perform one, hold aim and move backwards, then press roll. Volt's third ability is Electric Shield. This provides a transparent and intangible wall of electricity that blocks enemy projectiles, like gunshots and rockets, from passing through it, as well as protecting from explosions that'd stagger or knock you down. Your shots, however, and those from your allies, not only can pass through the shield, but also gain an electric damage boost and a critical damage boost. The electric damage boost is 50% additive to mods, applied for each shield the shot passes through. You can set up a max of 6 shields at once, giving you up to a 300% electric damage bonus. Just like with Volt's passive, this electric bonus does not combine with the elements on your weapon, electric or otherwise, instead applying as an immutable source of electric in your weapon's damage. For example, using a toxin weapon with electric shield will provide both toxin and electric damage, not corrosive damage. The status procs you apply this way will also just be toxin electric, no corrosive. The critical damage boost, however, is a simple doubling. Whatever critical damage multiplier you had, it's twice as strong for shots fired through the electric shield. This can grant a lot of damage, but cannot be stacked with multiple shields. Curiously enough, Electric Shield also buffs amp damage from operators, which, if you're a newer player, is something you'll learn more about after completing the quest The War Within. When it comes to melee, most weapons don't work with Electric Shield. Standard melee attacks are unboosted, as are thrown glaives. However, ranged shots, like with the Stropher or Quassus, do get boosted damage. At any time, Volt can pick up an electric shield by pressing the interact button, shrinking it down to function as a mobile riot shield. Press this button again to drop it where Volt is stood and looking towards. In the past, this used to create an energy drain and prevented the use of primary weapons, but both of those have been removed, giving you almost total freedom to bring the electric riot shield with you. Running into enemies with the shield equipped can knock them down, all while continuing to provide total projectile protection in front of you, an efficient battering ram or portable damage boost. Electric Shield is supposed to be able to be electrified by Volt Shock, making it deal damage to enemies that pass through the shield. Sadly, I've found no evidence this actually works. Even if it did, you usually don't want enemies to be passing through the shield, you want them dying on the other side before they can threaten you. Electric Shield has 2 augments available for it. The first is a recharge barrier, providing a one-time shield restore per player per shield on passing through it, starting at 35% shield restore and scaling with strength. At 286% strength, this is a total shield restore. Due to it being limited to once per shield, I wouldn't put much value on the augment. The other one is Transistor Shield. This augment allows your allies to pick up the shields, though there is almost nothing in a mission that would indicate to them this is an option, so most players still won't. As an added bonus, damage absorbed by the shields will add to Volt's passive to allow you to use it with a reliably stronger effect. These 2 effects are very niche and can be safely ignored in most builds. Finally then, we have Volt's Discharge ability. Discharge is a control and damage ability, stunning all enemies in a large area with no line of sight required as electricity courses through them. Immediately on becoming affected, each enemy will emit constant electricity around them, damaging other nearby enemies every second. All this is similar to an electric proc, dealing area damage over time with a stunning effect, but it never actually applies one. Instead, Discharge is a superior version with much higher range and longer stun duration. If an enemy has no nearby targets to apply its damage to, after 4 seconds of hitting nothing, the electricity collapses onto the enemy itself. Because of this delay, an ability duration of close to or under 4 seconds can cause 0 damage if all targets are out of range of each other. The way Discharge's damage is applied is particularly weird, even beyond that 4-second delay. Enemies struck by the ability don't flatly take the listed damage every second. Instead, it fluctuates a little bit by what can be best described as lag compensation. If the next hit is ever so slightly late, it deals ever so slightly more damage. If the next hit is early, it deals less damage. Where this has a really noticeable effect is on the first hit, as it seemingly counts the extra time delay between casting the ability and the effect reaching an enemy some distance away. Accounting for that time, Discharge deals much more damage on the first hit. It seems the aim is that the damage per second from Discharge is respected, even when hits happen sooner or later for whatever reason. When Volt's passive is taken into account, it gets weirder still. Volt's passive 1000 damage at full effect will apply to only one enemy caught in discharge. However, this enemy will not receive the additional damage directly. Instead, they emit the extra damage around them, dealing an extra 1000 damage per second to nearby targets compared to all others zapped by discharge. If that empowered target has no nearby enemies to zap, the damage from discharge collapsing onto them doesn't change. Instead, they'll start taking the damage sooner. How much sooner is the value of your passive, up to the 1000 max, divided by the damage per second of discharge. So with 100% strength and max passive, giving 1000 static damage and 1200 damage per second, discharge will start hitting the empowered enemy 0.83 seconds sooner. In other words, 3.17 seconds after it has no targets in range to zap. The damage per second doesn't go up, but the average damage you would inflict this way theoretically climbs by the value of your passive on cast. This may or may not actually increase the damage the empowered target takes though. If the reduction in delay is a fraction of a second, the electricity hitting them every second may not reach another whole second to deal more damage to them. You gotta hand it to DE on this one. I don't know if there is a more complicated way to apply damage over time or this damage boost without just getting silly. The big takeaways on discharge is that it hard crowd controls all enemies in range that can be stunned for the duration. It'll deal damage to them all, which ramps up significantly when more enemies are within range of each other, and it is much less effective in very low enemy density missions. Also, the stun doesn't open enemies up to finisher attacks, which is frankly criminal. Discharge's damage will fall off in higher levels, especially if the enemy density isn't a full swarm like in Steel Path Survival. To keep it relevant, this is where its augment comes in, Capacitance. Capacitance will grant you and allies in range shield hit points equal to just 3% of the damage dealt by discharge. This shield boost applies over shields when shields are maxed out, will boost companions as well as warframes, and isn't restricted by shield recharge delay. This mod takes discharge from being a damage and stun ability into a damage, stun and defensive ability, a solid all-in-one that can keep you and your team alive even under heavy fire, so long as there are enough enemies to zap to make a difference. This probably won't save you in boss fights, but everywhere else it's a strong augment to have. All combined then, Volt is fast, brimming with electric damage, yet able to generate strong defense too in the form of crowd control, barriers and team-wide shield generation. The biggest concern for Volt is energy. Without energy, he is not especially fast, can't stun enemies, can't put up barriers, and can't discharge the whole area. Any build for him first and foremost must make sure he has enough energy to keep on going. Beyond that, he can be modded in a few directions. Firstly, a core all-round build. This setup here uses a low efficiency, funded primarily by the energy you can get with Equilibrium. Combine it with a companion using Synth Deconstruct to get a substantial energy economy going. If you don't want to go that route, swap out an Arcane for Arcane Energize, with Equilibrium becoming a flex slot. Archon Stretch also generates a small amount of energy support here, but mostly is dwarfed by Equilibrium. For casting, I've put a heavy focus on strength, supported by decent range and a modest boost to duration. This enables all of Volt's abilities to be high impact, long lasting, and reliably reaching a good distance. Defensively, capacitors generate shields while adaptation makes those hit points last longer. You can further enhance the shield defense by swapping out an Arcane for Arcane Aegis, which has a decent chance of activating given Volt's high resistance shields of adaptation. If you don't want nor need the defense adaptation provides, you can switch to either Amar's or Naira's Hatred for a small casting stat buff and their extra effects, or Overextended to increase your range to about 1.5 times the current size at the expense of lower strength. For Archon Shards, I've used 2 Ambers for casting speed and 3 Tau Crimsons for ability strength. These aren't needed to reach any specific breakpoints however, so you can mix and match as you see fit, such as to enhance duration or energy income instead. I just like more speed. I've subsumed Roar over Shock as the first ability is not particularly useful at higher levels. Roar makes discharge stronger, so in turn increasing the shield regen it grants, while also being a team-wide damage buff. This can be used in most missions Volt is generally suited for, speeding through captures, cutting down exterminates, holding defense objectives, or nuking Sanctuary Onslaught. With a weapon suitable to shoot between cast, it can carry you through 8 waves of ESO without an issue. Now while this works as an all-rounder, sometimes it's better to specialise. What this build isn't focused on is being a pure weapons platform. At the cost of control and defense, Volt can switch up his weapon power with this approach. Shock Trooper grants electric damage to all weapons equal to our strength on casting, making this a minimum 343% electric bonus on weapons, which can completely remove the need to mod for elemental electric. I've also subsumed over Discharge with Eclipse for the multiplicative damage buff it provides, maxing out on this build at 128% extra damage on your weapons. Eclipse is the ability of choice here, as it's cheap, multiplies with all bonuses, doesn't interfere with other elemental modding, and can be switched to a defensive buff on demand if you've bitten off more than you can chew. As ever, you're free to switch to a different choice buff like Zarta's Whisper. If you want to maintain Shock Trooper, Speed, Eclipse, and 1 Electric Shield at once indefinitely, this setup requires 5.6 energy per second. I've taken the admittedly lazier route of using Arcane Energize to cover that cost. You can maintain this with just Zenric on your operator, which can incidentally also buff your strength yet further while opening up the Arcane slot to another of your choice. Consider Arcane Consequence so your bullet jumps don't feel bizarrely slow compared to your running speed. For those of you a long way away from such highly invested setups, you can start your build at a setup like this, achievable with no former needed on even basic Volt. We've got the 4 main ability stat mods, alongside extra energy and shield capacity, Augur Message for more duration again, and Capacitance for extra shield generation for your team, especially companions which tend to be more fragile while you're new. This gives you a basic balance of stats without having to break the endo bank early on. The aura is entirely flex in this situation, based more on what you have access to if you're still building out your mod collection. Volt is definitely a Warframe that rewards high investment with no real ceiling on how fast and strong he can go. His all-round kit gives room for strong ability casts, but affords a lot of benefits to both melee and gunplay. What I haven't touched on here is a build specifically made for Eidolon hunting. Volt is a powerhouse for that. His electric shield boosts amps, while Shock Trooper helps with smashing Synovia. Truth be told, I'm both bad at and don't enjoy Eidolon hunts, so I won't insult you by throwing up a build I'm not even using. If one had to pick, I'd equip the weapons platform build for maximum damage. Realistically, one of the best tips for Eidolon fighting is shoot them down before they can shoot you, so more damage is usually correct. All that is Volt in a nutshell, a very statically charged nutshell. I hope you feel confident in understanding what he does, why it works, and where you can take him next. That's all from me for now, so as always, cast speed, curse Titania, and fight well, Tenno.